Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review a Peloton of One. And this is a new documentary from directors Bernardo and Stephen Mallorca, and focuses on David Ohlmuller, who is taking a solitary journey on his bike from Chicago all the way to Montclair, New Jersey, which a lot of this film takes place in New Jersey, which I'm like, know those places. But focuses on this man who's doing this ride to support awareness of sexual misconduct by priests for the most part, but in general sexual abuse against children. And obviously this is a heavy topic and has been tackled in films like Spotlight and has obviously taken a big spotlight, no pun intended, in the news when these things started coming out. And this story, is really focusing on biking, and that becomes a big part of it. And this idea of a Peloton, this support for somebody. And this whole entire film is trying to find those supports who can really advocate for these kids who can't advocate for themselves, or the adults who were kids when this happened who legally cannot advocate for themselves because of statutes of limitations. And that becomes a whole part of this. But like focusing on the sexual misconduct, there's very raw and hard to listen to stories that are presented in this film because these people are being very honest about what they dealt with. And it's hard to listen to, but you have this man who's at the center trying to be this like lightning rod of hope and perspective. And the film dives into plenty of inspiring stories from like a 15-year-old who was sexually abused by his stepbrother, and which, geez, that was a very graphic part of this documentary. But seeing him trying to drum up attention in other stories, this is very inspiring and very, very impactful and poignant documentary because it doesn't pull punches. I do have to say, like, the documentary, you could feel it's low budget and maybe the filmmaking isn't the strongest, and a lot of it gets bogged down at times with just like figures and laws. And where this film really thrives is when it is presenting the very human aspects of this. But obviously, to try to get its thesis and its message across, it has to show those figures and those laws. And when it does focus a lot on that on screen, it becomes a little less engaging. But it brings you right back with these emotional stories from all of these people involved. And this is a really important and shocking documentary because a lot of the laws that it brings up are absolutely ridiculous, and how there's statutes of limitations and trying to frame it in terms of like what could possibly be the backlash of like how could somebody not want to support these young people who were sexually assaulted, and like the insurance and the face of the church and those kinds of things, being able to frame this whole story and see the big picture. And I think the documentary did a fine job at that. In general, this is a very emotional and poignant journey that I think is definitely worth experiencing because this is something that needs to be told and needs to have awareness for it. But those are my thoughts on a Peloton of One. Let me know what you think and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.